The evidence room is 11 feet by 14 feet. I measured it once, not because anyone asked me to, but because I wanted to know the exact dimensions of the space I was responsible for. 11 by 14. Concrete block walls, painted gray in a shade the county catalog calls institutional mist, but which is just gray. Metal shelving, 7 units, floor to ceiling, bolted to the walls and the floor per state retention standards. Fluorescent overhead lighting, 2 tubes, one of which has been flickering since before I started and which I have reported to maintenance 4 times without result. A steel door with a combination lock. No windows. I am telling you the dimensions because I need you to understand something about this room. That the measurements make clear. It is small. It is contained. Everything in it has a location. Everything in it has a number. Everything in it has a chain of custody that begins with the moment it entered the room and ends with the moment it leaves, either returned to its owner, released to a court, or destroyed per retention schedule. Nothing in this room is ambiguous. Nothing in this room is lost. That is the point of the room. That is the entire point. My name is Gene Hadley. I am the part-time evidence custodian for the Vinton County Sheriff's Office in MacArthur, Ohio. Vinton County has a population of approximately 13,000 people, which makes it the least populated county in the state. The Sheriff's Office employs the sheriff, 2 deputies, a dispatcher, and me. I work 12 hours a week, Tuesday and Thursday mornings, alternating Monday or Friday afternoons. My duties are maintain the evidence log, verify chain of custody documentation, ensure storage conditions comply with state standards, process destruction orders for cases past their mandatory retention period, and conduct periodic inventory audits. I have held this position for 7 years. Before that, I was a high school librarian in Chillicothe for 22 years. Before that, I was a wife and a new mother and a person who thought she understood what her life would look like. I mention the librarian work because it's relevant, the grill. The skills are the same. Cataloging, indexing, tracking, maintaining, keeping things where they belong so other people can find them. I have spent my entire professional life in rooms where the organizing principle is that everything has a place and the place is knowable. The evidence room has 342 active items across 87 case files. I know this the way I know my own phone number, and not because I've memorized it deliberately, but because I've handled every item enough times that the count lives in my hands. Most of the items are mundane. Drug paraphernalia from possession cases, a shotgun from a domestic disturbance in 2019, clothing from an assault in 2021, financial documents from an embezzlement case that will probably never go to trial because the defendant died in 2022, and the prosecutor hasn't filed a motion to dismiss. And then there is Case 8-3-0041, Ruth Ann Sowers, missing person. October 9th, 1983, 17 years old. Last seen walking east on Township Road 44 at approximately 6:15 p.m. by a neighbor named Dale Cremens, who was driving the opposite direction and waved. She waved back. That wave is the last confirmed human interaction with Ruth Ann Sowers. Next, the case file is in box 7 on the 3rd shelf of the 2nd unit. It has been in that location for the entire duration of my tenure. The box is a standard acid-free archival container. White, lidded, labeled with the case number and a brief description in black marker. Inside the box, a manila folder containing interview transcripts, a hand-drawn map of the search area, a typed summary of the investigation, and a smaller envelope containing personal effects, a hairbrush, a class ring, a pocket-sized New Testament with Ruth Ann's name written inside the front cover in round, careful handwriting, and the photographs. The original evidence log prepared in 1983 by then Deputy Howard Kessler lists 14 photographs, Polaroid instant prints, taken by Deputy Kessler on October 10, 1983, the day after Ruth Ann's disappearance. And they document the Sowers family home, Ruth Ann's bedroom, Township Road 44, and the tree line on the north side of the road where the initial search concentrated. I have handled these photographs many times. They are the saddest items in the room. Not because of what they show, which is ordinary, but because of what they were taken to do. They were taken by a man who was looking for a girl he expected to find. The framing is optimistic. He photographed her bedroom as though she had just stepped out. He photographed the road as though she might walk back along it while he was standing there. The tree-lined photographs have a quality of expectation that is almost unbearable once you notice it. She was never found. No body, no remains, no secondary crime scene. No suspect was ever named, and the case was never formally closed. Ohio does not close missing person cases without a resolution. But no investigative activity has been logged since 1991. The file has been functionally dormant for over 30 years. It exists in the evidence room the way a lot of cold cases exist, as weight, as a box that will never be lighter. On October 8th of this year, the day before the 41st anniversary of Ruth Ann's disappearance, though I did not register that fact at the time, I opened Box 7 for a routine retention review. I was not auditing the contents. I was verifying the condition of the storage materials, checking for moisture damage, pest intrusion, paper degradation, standard custodial maintenance. I opened the envelope of photographs and counted them the way I always count them, and the way I count everything. Thumb and forefinger, one at a time, face up, left to right. 15. I stopped. I counted again. 15. I spread them on the table, a small folding table I keep in the evidence room for exactly this kind of work, and I looked at them. 14 of them I recognized. The bedroom, the house, the road, the trees. I have seen these photographs dozens of times. I could describe them from memory. The 15th I had never seen. It was a Polaroid. Same size, same format, same film stock. The slightly warm, slightly soft color palette of early 1980s Polaroid 600 film. It showed a clearing. Trees. Hardwoods, mostly. Bare or nearly bare, which placed it in late autumn. The clearing was small, maybe 30 feet across, and the photograph was taken from a low angle, as though the photographer was kneeling or short, and the light was golden and lateral, either early morning or late afternoon. Sun coming through the trees from the east or west. The ground was covered in leaves. There was nothing else in the frame. No person, no object, no structure. Just a clearing in the woods, photographed with the kind of deliberate composition that means someone chose this view in this moment. I looked at the evidence log. 14 photographs. Item numbers 83-0041-P01 through 8, 3-0041-P14. No 15th entry. I looked at the photograph again. I turned it over. The back of a Polaroid is white, and Polaroids from this era often have notations written on them. Dates, locations, initials. This one was blank. No writing. No markings. Just the white backing and the faint chemical smell that Polaroid prints carry for decades if they're stored in low light, low humidity conditions. Which is to say, if they're stored in an evidence room. I did not panic. I want to be clear about that. I have been doing this work for 7 years, and I have been a cataloger of one kind or another for nearly 30. Discrepancies happen. Items get miscounted. Photographs stick together and get separated later. It is possible, it is the most reasonable explanation, that the 15th photograph was always in the envelope, adhered to the back of another print by the faint residual tackiness that old Polaroids develop, and that it's separated at some point between my last handling and this one. I noted the discrepancy in my custodial log. I assigned the photograph a provisional item number, 83-0041-P15, and documented its content with a brief written description and a digital photograph taken on my phone. Then I placed it back in the envelope, returned the envelope to the box, returned the box to the shelf, and locked the evidence room. That should have been the end of it. A minor inventory discrepancy, documented and noted, requiring no further action beyond updating the log. I have processed similar discrepancies before. They are unremarkable. I went home that evening and looked at the digital photograph on my phone. I want to describe what I felt because it's important and because I don't fully understand it myself. The clearing in the photograph was not threatening. There was nothing wrong with it. No ominous shadows, no hidden figure in the tree line, no disturbing object half concealed in the leaves. It was a clearing in Ohio woods in late autumn, and if I'd seen it while hiking, I would have thought it was pretty and kept walking. But I didn't keep walking. I kept looking. There was something about the framing, the low angle, the careful composition, the specific quality of the light, that made the photograph feel less like documentation and more like communication. It felt like someone standing in that clearing and saying, "Here." Not "look at this" or "something happened here," but simply, specifically, "here." I am here. I set the phone down. I picked it up again. I set it down again. I made dinner. I ate at the table where I've eaten alone for 4 years. And I thought about the photograph, and I thought about the clearing, and I went to bed thinking about both. I need to tell you about my husband. Not everything, at least not the 26 years of marriage, not the 3 children, not the way he used to stand in the kitchen doorway and watch me cook without saying anything because he said watching me was the best part of his evening. I need to tell you about the end because the end is the thing that brought me to the evidence room, and the evidence room is the thing that is bringing me to the clearing. Tom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at 51. He died at 57. The 6 years between diagnosis and death were a specific kind of disappearance, not sudden, not violent, but progressive. A person walking away from you down a very long hallway, turning back less and less often, until eventually they are around a corner you cannot see past and you are standing in the hallway alone. And the hallway is your house. And the silence in it is not the silence of absence, but the silence of someone who is still technically present and fundamentally gone. I became a librarian because I loved books. I became an evidence custodian because I loved the principle that underlies both jobs. Things stay where you put them. A book on a shelf is on that shelf until someone moves it. Inscria, an evidence item in a box, is in that box until the system authorizes its removal. The world, in a room organized by someone who cares about organization, does not rearrange itself. Things do not drift. Things do not wander. Things do not walk away. Tom walked away. Not literally. He was in a care facility for the last 2 years. And before that, he was in our house, and I was with him every day. But the person who was Tom walked away from the body that was Tom so slowly and so completely that by the end I could hold his hand and feel his warmth and look into his eyes and find nothing there that recognized me. And the hand was still a hand, and the warmth was still warmth, and the eyes were still eyes, and the man who watched me cook was gone. I took the evidence room job 4 months after he died. The sheriff, Marlene Kessler, Howard Kessler's daughter as it happens, offered it to me because the county budget couldn't support a full-time custodian, and she knew I was looking for work that would give me a reason to leave the house on specific days. I took it because of the room, because of the shelves and the boxes and the numbers and the log and the lock on the door, because I needed to be in a place where things stayed where they were. On Thursday, October 10th, the 41st anniversary of Ruth Ann's disappearance, a fact I registered this time, I opened box 7, 16 photographs. The 16th was a Polaroid. Same film stock, same era-consistent color. It showed the same clearing, from an angle shifted approximately 10 degrees to the left. The trees were the same trees. The light was the same light. But in this frame, there was something new. A narrow path leading east out of the clearing, barely visible through the leaf litter and the undergrowth. If you weren't looking for it, you would miss it. I was looking for it. I don't know why I was looking for it, but I was, and there it was, in a path, leading somewhere, photographed by someone who wanted me to see which direction to go. I counted the photographs 3 times, 16. I checked the log, still 14. I checked my custodial note from Tuesday. I had documented the 15th photograph. Now there was a 16th. The 15th was where I had placed it, in sequence. The 16th was behind it, as though it had been slipped into the envelope after the 15th, by a hand that knew the order. I did not document the 16th immediately. I sat with it, I held it, and Polaroids have a specific weight, heavier than a standard print, rigid, with the thick chemical layer on the back that gives them their distinctive stiffness. I held it, and I felt its weight, and I looked at the path leading east through the woods, and I felt something that I haven't felt in 4 years. I felt found. I don't mean that I felt discovered or observed or watched. I mean that the photograph, the fact of its appearance, the fact that it came after the first one, the fact that it moved, made me feel the way you feel when someone you've lost sends a signal. Not a message, not information, a signal. A pulse in the dark that says, I am still here, and I'm moving, and if you follow, there is somewhere to go. I know that this is grief. I know that I am a 54-year-old widow in the least populated county in Ohio. I'm sitting in a concrete room holding a Polaroid that should not exist, projecting my own loss onto a 40-year-old missing person case because the two things share a shape. Someone walked away and was not found, and my mind is making them rhyme. Because minds do that, because grief does that, because the alternative is that the photograph is real and the path is real and someone is adding images to an evidence box in a locked room with a combination that only I and Marlene know. I documented the 16th photograph. I went home. On Friday, I did not open the box. I want to be honest about that. I chose not to open it. I walked past the shelf and I felt the box the way you feel a letter you haven't opened, and I chose not to look because I was afraid. Not of what I would find, of what I would feel when I found it. And on the following Tuesday, I opened the box. 19 photographs, 3 new images, the path continuing through the woods, each one a step further along. Not metaphorically, but literally. The perspective in each photograph shifted by what I estimated to be 15 to 20 feet, as though the photographer had walked a short distance, stopped, taken a picture, walked again, stopped, taken a picture. The path was becoming more defined in each frame. The undergrowth was thinning. The trees were taller, older, the canopy thicker. The light was consistent across all three. The same golden lateral illumination, the same time of day, the same season. And in the 19th photograph, at the far edge of the frame, barely visible through the trees, a structure, not clearly defined, just a shape. A vertical line and a horizontal line that didn't belong to any tree. Something built. Something standing in the woods at the end of a path that was being shown to me one frame at a time. I need to tell you what I did with the 19 photographs, because it's the first thing I've done in 7 years that violates my professional training, and I need to name that clearly. I took them to the map. The case file includes a hand-drawn map of the search area from 1983, a topographic sketch showing the Sowers property, Township Road 44, and the surrounding terrain. The search grid covers approximately 2 square miles north and east of the road. The grid was thorough for its era and resources. Every section was marked as searched, with initials and dates. The woods north of the road were searched on foot by volunteers over 3 days. Nothing was found. I looked at the map. I looked at the photographs. The clearing in the first image, the one I'd been staring at for a week, had a specific topographic signature. A flat area surrounded by mature hardwoods on a gentle south-facing slope, with the sun entering from the east at a low angle. I cross-referenced this against the topographic lines on the map. There were 3 possible locations within the search grid that matched the terrain profile. All 3 were inside the area marked as searched, but one of them, the easternmost on the slope above Raccoon Creek, was at the very edge of the grid. The search notation for that section was a single set of initials, H.K. Howard Kessler, and the date, October 12, 1983. He searched it alone on the 3rd day, the day the volunteer search was called off. I drove out there on Wednesday, my day off. I didn't tell Marlene. I didn't tell anyone. The clearing was there. I recognized it immediately, not from having been there before, but from the photograph. The same trees, the same slope, the same flat, leaf-covered ground, the same quality of light. Though the light was different because it was afternoon, and the photographs were taken in morning light. And I knew that because I was standing where the photographer had stood, and I could see where the sun would come through the eastern canopy at dawn, and it was exactly where the light in the photographs came from. I found the path. It was faint. 40 years of growth had softened it. But it was there. A narrow line through the undergrowth leading east, exactly as the photographs showed. I did not follow it. Not that day. I went home. As I sat at the kitchen table, I looked at the photographs on my phone, all 19 of them, documented digitally, arranged in sequence. I scrolled through them slowly, clearing from the left, path appearing, path continuing, trees changing, structure emerging. Someone had walked this path. Someone had documented it one step at a time in a medium that would survive decades in a dark box, and then they had placed the documentation, or the documentation had placed itself, in the only container that connected this path to Ruth Ann Sowers, the evidence box in the Vinton County Sheriff's Office. I opened the box on Thursday. 22 photographs. The path was longer now. The trees were enormous. Old growth, or close to it. The kind of trees that don't exist in managed timberland. The structure was closer. It was a cabin, which is small, wood-framed, with a pitched roof and a single window visible in the frame. It looked handmade. It looked old. It looked like the kind of structure someone builds when they intend to stay. The 20-second photograph showed the cabin's door. It was closed. There was a wooden step below it, and on the step, barely visible in the golden light, there was an object. I enlarged the digital photo on my phone as far as I could without losing resolution. It was a book. Small, pocket-sized, dark cover. I went to the evidence box and opened the envelope of personal effects. Ruth Ann Sauer's pocket New Testament was there. Dark cover. Pocket-sized. Her name inside the front cover in round, careful handwriting. Ois. I held the book in one hand and the photograph in the other, and I looked at the step and the book on the step and the book in my hand, and I understood that these were not the same object. The book in the evidence box was the book Ruth Ann had when she disappeared. The book in the photograph was the book Ruth Ann had where she arrived. I want to tell you what I think is happening, and then I want to tell you what I'm going to do. And I need you to understand that these are not the same thing, that what I think and what I'm going to do are separated by a gap that I cannot bridge with logic, and am choosing to bridge with something else. I think Ruth Ann Sowers walked into the woods on October 9th, 1983, and I think she found the clearing, and I think she followed the path, and I think she reached the cabin, and I think she's there. Oh, I don't mean her body. I don't mean her bones. I mean that she walked somewhere that isn't on the map, that the path she took doesn't connect to the terrain the way paths are supposed to, that the old growth trees in the photographs don't exist in the managed woodlands of Vinton County, and that the cabin she reached is not a place the search grid could have found because it is not a place the search grid can contain. I think she has been there for 41 years or for no time at all or for a kind of time that doesn't correspond to the calendar I live inside. I think she is the one taking the photographs. I think she is putting them in the box. I think she has been waiting for someone to look at them carefully enough to see that they are not evidence of a crime but directions home or directions to her, which may not be the same thing. And I think the photographs chose me because I am a person who counts things and who notices when the count changes and who does not look away from a discrepancy. Now I need to tell you what I'm going to do. On Saturday morning, I'm going to drive to the clearing. I'm going to bring the photographs, the originals, not the digital copies. I'm going to walk the path. I'm going to follow it east, through the woods, past the trees that shouldn't be that old, along the trail that shouldn't still be visible, until I reach the cabin or until the path ends or until the woods become something I don't recognize and can't navigate, and I have to turn back. I have thought about this carefully. I have thought about it the way I think about everything systematically. It's with attention to what I know and what I don't know and what the gap between those two things contains. Here is what I know. The photographs are real. I've held them. They have weight. They have chemical composition. They have the specific, irreproducible texture of Polaroid 600 film that has not been manufactured since 2008. They are not reproductions. They are not digital prints made to look like Polaroids. They are original instant photographs taken on film that is older than some of my children. Here's what I don't know. How they got into the box. Who is taking them? Whether the path in the photographs corresponds to a path I can physically walk. Whether the cabin exists in the woods or only in the images. Whether Ruth Ann Sowers is alive, dead, somewhere else, or something I don't have a category for. Wait, here is what the gap contains. The same thing every gap in my life has contained since Tom died. The possibility that something I lost is not gone but elsewhere. Not destroyed but relocated. Not absent but waiting in a place I haven't looked yet because I didn't know the place existed. I know that this is the grief talking. I know that I am mapping Tom onto Ruth Ann, mapping my loss onto a 40-year-old case, mapping the evidence room onto The hallway that Tom walked down and didn't come back from. I know that the photographs may be leading me nowhere. I know that the clearing may be just a clearing and the path may end in brambles and the cabin may not exist and I may stand in the woods on a Saturday morning in October feeling foolish and cold and no closer to anything than I was before. But here is what I also know. I have spent 4 years in a room where things stay where they are. I chose that room because the alternative, a world where people move and change and leave and cannot be found, was intolerable. I built a life around the principle that if you catalog something carefully enough, it will not disappear. And now the catalog is telling me to go. Not commanding, not threatening, not luring, asking. One photograph at a time. One step at a time. With the patience of someone who has been in the woods for 41 years and has learned that the only way to bring another person to where you are is to show them the path slowly enough that they can choose each step. I have been choosing. Every time I open the box and find a new photograph, I am choosing to look at it. Every time I document it and place it back in the envelope, I am choosing to maintain the connection. Every time I go home and enlarge the image on my phone and study the trees and the light and the shape of the path, I am choosing to follow. The photographs are not making me do anything. They are giving me something I haven't had since Tom died. A direction. I don't know what I'll find. I don't know if the path in the photographs corresponds to the path in the woods. I don't know if the woods I'll walk through on Saturday are the woods in the pictures or just ordinary Ohio timber that happens to occupy the same coordinates. I don't know if Ruth Ann Sowers is at the end of the trail. I don't know if anyone is, but I know there are now 26 photographs in the box. I checked this morning, and the last one shows the cabin door open. Not ajar. Open. The way you open a door when you see someone coming up the path and you want them to know they're welcome. And on the step next to the book, there is a second object. I enlarged it on my phone, and I looked at it for a long time, and then I set the phone down, and I sat in the evidence room with the fluorescent light flickering and the shelves holding their weight and the boxes keeping their contents. And I cried for the first time since Tom's funeral. It's a pair of reading glasses, wire-framed, left temple slightly bent. Tom's reading glasses are in a box in my bedroom closet. They have been there for 4 years. I know this because I have checked. I checked this morning. They are still there. But the ones in the photograph are identical. Same frames, same bend in the left temple. The bend he never fixed because he said it made them fit better. I am not following Ruth Ann Sowers into the woods. I am not following a 40-year-old missing person case to its resolution. I am not investigating. I am not solving. I am going to walk a path that someone has shown me, one photograph at a time, and I am going to see what is at the end of it. And if what is at the end of it is nothing, just a clearing and old trees and Ohio dirt, then I will walk back, and I will return the photographs to the box, and I will lock the evidence room, and I will go home to a house where the kitchen is quiet, and the doorway is empty, and the reading glasses are in the closet where I put them. And if what is at the end of it is a door, and the door is open, and someone is inside who has been waiting for a person who counts things and notices when they change and does not stop looking. I don't know how to finish that sentence. The path is in the photographs. The photographs are in the box. The box is in the room where things stay where they are, except now the things are moving. And they're asking me to move with them. Saturday. I'll know by Saturday. I'm leaving this account in the evidence room in a new folder in a new box on the shelf next to box 7. I've assigned it a case number, and the next sequential number in the log. It's not a case. I know it's not a case but it's the only system I have for making sure something stays where I put it, and if I don't come back from the woods, I want someone to find this and know that I went looking, and that the looking was a choice, and that the choice was mine. The evidence log is current. The room is in order. The photographs are in the box. The door in the last photograph is open. I'm going to walk through it.